Welcome students. Now let us learn about the frustration and conflicts. Frustration is the condition of being upset in the satisfaction of a motive. This is the definition. Frustration. Man's behavior is motivated and goal directed. Most of his behaviors are even considered as a quest or striving for the satisfactions of a large variety of motives. Sometimes, however, he experiences some problems, obstacles, and hindrances along the way. In case like this, he became frustrated. Frustration refers to the denial or upsetting of a goal-directed behavior. Thus, if we want something and cannot have it, we experience frustration. Source of frustration. There are many reasons why the realization of our goals does not materialize. Once the goal is blocked, it is important that we identify the likely source of frustration. Better understanding of the forerunner conditions that precede that occurrence of a frustrating event gives us a better view of the likely coping strategy we are to employ. We see the source of frustration. First, physical environment. Second, socio-cultural environment. Third, personal inadequacy. Fourth, background stressors. Physical environment. The physical environment is a major source of frustration. In it operates forces or events we cannot personally control but otherwise affect our very lives. Events such as war, natural calamities, weather disturbance, and food shortage are events in the environment that inevitably causes of frustration. A volcanic eruption can have an adverse effects one's livestock business and other source of living. A garden wedding, a prospective couple dreamed that for years may be messed up by a large single physical event they cannot control. That is a rain. Socio-cultural environment. This pertains to the factors in the socio-cultural environment like customs, traditions, and laws which impose restriction on one's behavior and actions, hence turn someone frustrated. This frustration is experienced by a man who cannot marry someone he loves but he belongs to the another religion. This is the reason. Socio-cultural environment. Personal inadequacy. Whether imagined or real, personal inadequacy prevents a person from meeting a need for self-esteem or need to attain goals. The feeling of inferiority is an imagined sense of personal inadequacy that may come in form of personal handicaps like blindness or inferior intelligence, internal or personal problems, because physical defeat and abnormalities, mental deficiency, conflicting desires, moral values, and high level of aspiration. Background stressors. These are minor irritations we experience every day. Daily irritates may not require much of coping, but they may pile up into very strong stressors. Traffic, daily traffic, noisy neighborhood, and long daily travels are some examples. Responses to frustration. A stressful circumstance could be eased when a person successfully cope with it, despite the fact that we cannot prevent daily irritates and adverse life event from affecting us. It is comforting, however, to know that we human beings are endowed with the resource and response patterns that allow us to cope effectively. These patterns are collectively known as a coping mechanism. The adjustment effort that an individual makes in order to reduce the tension that goes with the frustration. There are three major categories of coping mechanism: aggressive reaction, withdrawal reaction, and defense mechanism. We see the response to frustration. First major one, aggressive reactions, and second withdrawal reaction, a third a defense mechanism. Aggressive reactions. Aggressive reaction is considered a fight response to frustration. Whenever a person's effort to reach a goal is blocked, an aggressive drive is produced. This drive, in turn, precipitates to an action to injure the objects or the person, causing the frustration. As an overt expression of frustration, aggression can either be directed at the source of frustration or displaced. When displaced, the aggressive tendency is derived at innocent person or objects. Thus, an upset person may displace his anger by breaking a window, then hit someone who caused his frustration. Withdrawal reaction. As a form of coping mechanism, withdrawal reaction is an avoidant response characterized by a diversion of attention and memory of frustrating and traumatic experience. This is considered a flight mechanism, wherein an individual retreats from the source of frustration. Common withdrawal reactions are daydreaming, fantasy, apathy, aversion, and stereotyped behavior. Routinely, he do the same work, doing the same manner. Defense mechanism. These are the unconscious strategies or psychological crutches people use in dealing with the conflicts and negative feelings. They involve some elements of self-deception, as they don't really solve problems. They simply change the way the person perceive or think about the current situation. This defense mechanism created by the Sigmund Freud. He do many more defense mechanism: displacement, rationalization, many more defense mechanism he create. Conflict. Stimuli not only overload us, they also serve as source of conflict. Conflict is a built-in frustration that occurs when we are confronted by two or more incompatible stimuli. There is contradictory, a stage of tension brought by the presence in the individual of two or more opposite desires. State of affairs in which two or more incompatible behavior, tense and evoked, that cannot be satisfied fully at the same time. Conflict is usually a clash of motives. Conflict is usually a clash of motives. Types of conflict. A classification of according to source. Interpersonal. The conflict between a person and his environment, and intrapersonal. Second, classification according to goals. Approach conflict, an avoidance conflict, an approach-avoidance conflict, double approach-avoidance conflict. classification of according to source. Interpersonal conflict. This type of conflict is quite common and can be potent source of frustration. Example, conflict with the parents and children, conflict between employer and employees, conflict between majority and minority groups, conflict between a person and his environment. By environment, we mean natural and artificial acts and events which people are powerless to prevent, such as floods, droughts, earthquakes, fire, contagious disease, wars. Conflict, contagious wars and contagious disease, as now we call it as corona pandemic, Conflicts depends on the attitude of the persons. Some people struggle against these situations. Intrapersonal conflicts. This conflicts with a person of motives, desire and impulses is called internal conflicts. Another, the major types. You see, types of conflicts. There are 4 major types of conflicts. Approach, avoidance, approach-avoidance and multiple approach-avoidance. In approach conflict, this conflict occurs when a choice is forcibly made between two simultaneously attracted stimuli or circumstance. This is the least stressful of 4 types of conflict because either one of the choice leads to opposite result. Should you go out with the star player of the basketball team of your school or the star player of the football team? Will you go for an ice cream or cake? Something to go simultaneously attractive. A person. Avoidance-Avoidance conflict. When a choice is forcibly made to avoid 2 simultaneously negative or adverse stimuli or circumstance, avoidance-avoidance conflict occurs. The individual want to avoid both, but in any cases, you can avoid only one. This conflict is definitely more stressful than having to choose between 2 attractive choices. In many instances, an avoidance situation is left unresolved until the last possible moment. For instance, a student go through the difficult and stress of preparing for a report, or many choose not to show up in the class but get grades of 0. Negative, he chooses the subject or get difficult stress preparing the report or get he 0. Approach-Avoidance conflict. This conflict involves a single stimulus or circumstance that has both positive and negative characteristics. Life is full of approach-avoidance situations and they can be highly stressful. In these circumstances, much thinking and evaluation of consequences is required before a decision is made. This dilemma is experienced by a person who is simultaneously attracted to the perspective of marriage but entertains in reservation over his capacity for a series of family responsibilities. A double chocolate delight would be sumptuous, but it is worth the extra pound of weight. Attracted by the chocolate, repelled by goes to fatty. If you only take the chocolate continuously, he became fat. This is only attractive by chocolate. First positive one, negative, repelled by goes to. Multiple approach-avoidance conflict. This is conflict result by several factors, each one having own advantages and disadvantages. Simultaneously confront a person. The number of alternatives, complications, this situation, especially if the alternatives relates to our innermost id or motives. The decision to work abroad induce the type of conflict. Push factors like economic rewards, opportunity to travel, and a prospect for prestige attainment are simultaneously confronted vis-a-vis such hindering factors like the imagined loneliness, adjustment to new culture, and the risk of racial discrimination. The same way we can approach double approach and avoidance conflict. The same previously what we learned, this is also same thing. In real life, we frequently have to choose between two or more goals, each of which has both attracting and repelling aspects. Example, choosing a house in the suburbs will mean that we can free from pollution but have to travel more to reach city. Choosing a house in city, we may buy a small house and may not be suited for growing family. Unconscious conflicts. Freud believed that human conflicts comes from inner turmoil between the three dynamic aspects of human psyche: id, ego, superego. Id consists of primitive impulses such as aggression and sex. Ego represents our conscious intelligence and sense of reality, and reason and discretion. Superego, chief force that makes for the socialization of individual, aids on moral principles. Most of our emotional disorders are due to the unconscious conflict. Source of conflict: home environment, faulty upbringing, unhealthy or unpleasant relationship, overprotection, dominance and negligence, uncongenial and unsuitable environment, school environment, uncongenial school or college environment, dominant and submissive role of the teachers, faulty method of teaching, denial of opportunities. Occupational environment. For many adults, their occupational environment proves a source of conflict. The uncongenial and improper working environment, dissatisfaction with the working conditions and the career fulfillment, unsatisfactory relationship among colleagues or with authorities, dissatisfaction with the wages and salary, lack of security in old age. Social and cultural environment. Social values and cultural environment may also prove a potential source of conflicts. Example, conflicts related to sex, taboos and inhibitions, and the negative attitude towards sex are causes of sexual conflicts. Conflict resolution. Conflict resolution is process of ending disagreement between two or more people in a constructive fashion for all parties involved. It is one of the emotional intelligence. Styles of conflict resolution: combating, collaborating, compromise, avoiding, accommodation. Importance of relationship: high and low. Importance of achieving goals: high and low. Competing: one party seeks to satisfy interest regardless of impact to another party. Collaborating: both parties win. Compromise: both parties win and give up something. Avoiding: one or both parties seek to suppress the conflict. Accommodating: one party yields the win to the other party. Styles of conflict resolution: competitive, aggressive communication, low regard of relationship uses when there is any emergency or need of quick decision is required. Avoiding: delegating controversial decision, accepting default decision when the issue is not very important, when some more time is needed. This you can avoid in this type. Compromising, give and take a resource and splitting the differences between the two positions. It is useful when other styles fail, when everyone expected to give up solution, some compromise to other parties. Collaborating, working towards a common goal for mutual satisfaction, when a variety of viewpoints are needed to reach a solution. Collaborating, accommodating, maintaining the relationship is needed when harmony is made valuable than winning. Method of conflict resolution. Win-loss approach. Typically, one decided the solution and persuaded the other person to agree using aggressive or authoritarian techniques. Loss approach. In this, neither party is happy with its outcome. Both parties do not look into each other's feeling and the issue is never resolved. Win-win approach. Here the conflict is resolved and no one is declared the winner or the loser. Both look for solution and carefully evaluate option and decide on an outcome that is mutually acceptable. Okay, thank you. Thank you, student.